Good afternoon. Dobar dan. Dobrodošli.
Oh yeah.
And kako ste? Oh, good. Now that we've got all the international pleasantries out of the way, I'm a bit nervous, so bear with me. My name is Hans, but enough about me. I'm sorry, but in this talk we will have very little code, so feel free to Google some Python or something. And there's a good talk about Azure if you want something more technical in the other hall. So, the future doesn't come as a big bang. It's more of a gradual process. If you look at the progress that we've made so far today, you might not be that impressed, but imagine teleporting yourself from 2000 to the current age. You might be very surprised. We've got working quantum computing now. We've got brainwave reading technology. We've got self-driving cars. We didn't use search engines at that time. We didn't have an iPhone. We didn't have touch technology. All kinds of very exciting developments. When most people think about the future, they tend to overestimate the amount of progress that we will be making in 1 year, and they underestimate the progress that we make in 10 years. This is the inauguration of the Pope, and you can see one flip phone over there. And this is 2013, where people apparently think it's okay to make photographs with iPads. So today I would like to look toward the future with you. We will look at trends and imagine how these technologies can impact the work that you will have to be doing tomorrow. But to make any kinds of assumption about the future, we just need to quickly look at the past to perhaps interpret some of it. From the start, humans have adapted to new technologies, new communication processes at an ever-increasing pace, starting from written language, radio, telephone, internet, and even Angry Bird Space, which reached 50 million people in 35 days. That's an exponential growth. We are developing an insatiable appetite for all things shiny and new. I know I am. So, we all know Moore's law, right? It's the law about doubling of transistors and every 18 months. That had a very big effect, the effect of Moore's law. It's the basis for much of the progress that we've been making. The trend here is a doubling of capacity or performance per time unit. But Moore didn't foresee the halving of price, because combined with the more power we get, we also get a lot smaller price. On the left, it's 5 megabytes for bargain price. So it's been pretty good. To talk about the future today, I want us to understand exponential growth. Now, I know most of you are highly trained engineers, and you'll probably know this, so I'll be quick. This is linear growth. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, etc., up until you get to 30. That's different from exponential growth. Exponential growth is 1, 2, 4, etc., up until you get to 265 in 9 steps. So step 30 in linear is, well, 30. In exponential, 30 steps gets you to 1 billion. And that's the effect that we've been seeing for the past 50 years in technology. It keeps growing exponentially. And this effect is underestimated by a lot of people. A little story about the Human Genome Project. The Human Genome Project started in 1990, and the goal was to decode the 3 billion letters of the human genome. They made a planning, as we all do in our projects. Planning is guessing, but anyway. The goal was to do it within 15 years. Most said it could not be done in our lifetime. After working on this enormous project for 7 years, they very proudly announced that they are at 1%. And everybody was laughing at them, saying, well, if you're at 1% now, it'll take you 700 years to finish. But they didn't. They finished it in 13 years instead of 15, and way under budget, because if you're at 1%, it's only 7 more steps to get to 100% if you think exponentially. And that advance was powered by Moore's law and the effects of Moore's law. One more example of growth. Looking at the planets that we've discovered. Oh, there's something missing. Looking at the amount of planets we've discovered since 1989. In 1989, we discovered 4 planets, and it kept growing exponentially. And in last year, we discovered 900 planets due to the new space telescope Kepler. And that technology that was used there is also making its way into healthcare, allowing us to scan CT scans and discover different forms of cancer via very smart algorithms. We're also making a lot of progress on AI, artificial intelligence, in many different ways. The Open Worm project in California made a digital worm. They took the software and they're recreating the neurons and cells in a worm. It's called something big in Latin, elegans. It's the simplest organism we know of. It's a very simple brain, and they recreated it in software. They took that software and they downloaded it into a Lego robot. And this robot is behaving like a worm should. This project is downloadable. You can go to the Open Worm project and download the digital brain of a worm. Which might seem not that impressive, but if you think exponentially, what brain will be next? Some futurists expect us to make this kind of progress, where we'll be able to have the computational power and the artificial intelligence of a human in a couple of years, and by 2050 we will be able to have, again exponentially thinking, the power of all the human brains in the world in a computer, available digitally as software. Artificial intelligence has been making steady progress. IBM's Watson won Jeopardy. Jeopardy is a game show in the US where you get presented a answer and you have to devise the question. And Jeopardy really beat the humans out there by a big margin. IBM's Watson is a giant computer. It currently has the IQ compared to, let's say, a stupid teenager. But again, exponential thinking. IBM has expanded into many more branches. It's doing medical diagnostics for a couple of hospitals in the US, where it can do it much faster than normal doctors can, because it can analyze a lot of documents in a very small time. It also does law. It has I'll show you an example of that in a moment. And a lot of the services that Watson has are being exposed as APIs, image recognition, voice recognition, etc. And you're able to use it for a small fee. But given the nature of exponential thinking, within, let's say, 10 years, 15 years, the IQ that Watson will have will be way in the thousands. And imagine being able to ask a very smart person that has an IQ of 10,000 to devise a solution for your problem. It can analyze a lot of information and give us answers that we might not be expecting. This is Hello Barbie. It's AI that is used in a toy. And the owner of this toy can ask it all kinds of questions. It can have a discussion on the level of a child. There's another example. This is the green dinosaur. This is one that's powered by Watson. It's able to talk to a child on its level. You can ask all kinds of questions. I've got a boy, and it's been asking questions like this since he was 2 years old. Daddy, how does this work? Why does this work? And all those questions can be answered by artificial intelligence, which is awesome on the one hand, and a bit scary. And it says some things about how technology will influence a lot of things in the future. AI is going to be all around us. And I probably think that within 10 years, the smartest person in the room will be the room itself, due to all this technology. There's also something that I call augmented intelligence. It's where humans are assisted by computers, and in a sense we're all assisted by computers because with this device in our hands we're probably the smartest generation that ever lived because we've got all the information of the world at our disposal, in our pockets, which is amazing. Something like that was unthinkable 30 years ago. Technology is making a lot of progress in the field of brainwave detection, where there are now games available that read your brainwaves and you can play a game like this. This technology is being applied to the medical field and to industry. It's also possible to augment and change memory. They've done an experiment where they had a couple of mice, and the mice was trained that a certain place in its cage was good, that there was food, a good experience, and then by a light field technology, they changed the memory of that mice, so that suddenly that mice found that place to be the scariest place in the whole cage. And again, exponential thinking, what would that mean in 10 years? What can we do with that technology? This is an experiment that they've done in the US. They connected the brains of two scientists via the internet, and they were playing a game. And the one scientist could not see the game, but he was connected via a headset, and he's playing that game. And the other scientist was also playing the same game, and he could see it, but he didn't move it. He didn't move his hands. This guy's moving his hands through the internet. Meaning, via an API, we can steer someone's brain. Yes, it's very basic right now. But again, exponential thinking, don't underestimate this. So what does this mean for us? Different input methods? Could this be used in technology in the future? If machine learning and AI is the next step for software, then surely quantum computing is the next step for hardware. A quantum computer does not compute in normal bits, it computes in qubits, and a qubit, due to the very strange properties of quantum physics that I of course don't understand, it can have the value of 0 or 1 or both at the same time. That allows for enormous exponential power of quantum computing. In the future, and even currently, Google, Facebook, Microsoft, they're all experimenting with quantum computing. And the cloud applications of the near future will be powered by quantum computing. Expect quantum computing to reach a global scale by 2025. That's how fast the technology is moving right now. But quantum computing also has presents us perhaps with a current problem, because a quantum computer can decode encrypted messages that we have right now at an enormous speed. Meaning if you have something that's supposed to be very secure today, and somebody is able to listen to that, to store it, within 10 to 15 years they could decode that message. And that has an impact on how we deal with security right now. Perhaps every year we should re-encode our secret messages, our messages we want to be kept safe. When looking at new technologies, we can't ignore 3D or 4D computing. Printing, sorry. It's bringing a revolution in manufacturing, healthcare, supply chain management, and many other industries. And the capabilities are increasing. New materials, better materials, multiple materials, greater scale, greater precision. The one at the top there is a skull, and it was printed in Holland. There was a woman that had a specific sickness where her skull was getting thicker and thicker every year, meaning her brain was being pressed inside her skull. And they cut out her skull and put a 3D printed skull inside. And now she's working in Utrecht, and she's doing fine. And that's because of 3D printing. They were able to scan her old skull and put in a new one. And remember, again, the doubling of performance and the cutting of costs is also having a big impact on 3D printing. I like 3D printing because it brings the scale and automation that we have in the internet and in software to atoms. But I do wonder, once we build the perfect 3D printer that can print out a lot of different materials, it could print itself. So that might make an economic problem for the maker of that printer, because you only have to buy one. Virtual and augmented reality. Oculus Rift is almost ready. It's owned by Facebook. It's a virtual reality product, meaning your normal reality is cut off and you only see the virtual reality. It'll be released somewhere early next year. And it's very exciting. If you can only imagine the applications for this in healthcare, in education, for example, and in gaming, of course. And virtual reality as well, it's virtual, it's not your real reality. This is the Hololens from Microsoft, also going to be released next year. And it's augmented reality, meaning your reality that you see, it's augmented, something is added to it. Also be released next year. This is Magic Leap. It's a project from, Google has invested in this project, and it goes one step further than the HoloLens does because it adapts reality. It changes reality. It can look outside towards what you really see and make changes to that. It uses light field, it uses a projector where it projects light onto your eye, so your field of vision is much broader than the other examples that are out there, and you can see that they've integrated it into reality. It looks at the table, and what you see is behind that. If you combine, for example, technologies like these with the brainwave technology, you could see all kinds of new applications. If you can read brains, you can control this environment via your brain. And again, exponential thinking. Or what about Siri? Siri is currently a tool that you can only hear. In the future, in the near future, I think it's going to be something that you can actually see and you can actually interact with. And you'll have your own personal Siri and you can decide which one you like. You can have it designed. So what does this mean for us? I think it's very compelling to look at 3D and to look at what we can do with 3D. And most of us are currently working on software and working with very flat UIs. But perhaps it's time to go look at 3D and hire some 3D professionals, partner with companies that do stuff in 3D. Or imagine the green dino from Watson, giving your child something like the Magic Leap. The little dino could be real. It could be a virtual friend to your child. And again, there are a lot of upsides and a lot of negative sides about that, because that has some implications for how you deal with education and children. And the imaginary friend could suddenly be very real. One more thing about the technology that drives this change. I think all these technologies seem to become even more exponential with the advance of the internet. The internet, in my view, is something that, by its very nature, disintermediates. That means it takes out the middleman. And we've been seeing that for the past 15 years at a breathtaking pace. It started in music, books, travel branches, always taking out the middleman. And it keeps doing that. The same thing is happening, if you think about it, in 3D printing. It's taking out a lot of middlemen along the way. It's taking the raw materials, bypassing the factories, and there's something that can be on a much more local scale. The internet is also making some weird stuff possible, because we have companies that, Uber, for example, it's the biggest taxi company in the world, but doesn't own a single taxi. Airbnb, the biggest accommodation site in the world, and doesn't own a single room. Go look at education, the Khan Academy, an online giant education platform from India, and it's changing the way that millions of people have access to education, and a very high quality education around the world. Think about healthcare. Your local doctor is competing, well, with you, because you've got a lot of knowledge, and before I go to the doctor, I always Google, I go tell him what I have, and then he only needs to confirm it, thank you. But the doctor's also competing with a doctor in India, because via Skype I can pay $10 and I can have a virtual consult with a doctor in India, outsourced, much cheaper. Even our own industry, outsourcing and nearshoring, especially in Serbia, has made big changes. And a lot of those changes are because of the power of the internet and the way that we can communicate and the scale it brings. Every industry currently is changing because of the power of the internet, and again, powered by the exponential capabilities that we've seen described in Moore's law. And the cool thing is we are the agents of that change, because we, on the room, software engineers, designers, we are at the helm of this. And perhaps because of this, the average lifespan of companies 30 years ago was 65 years. And currently, it's at 5 years, and it keeps declining. What does this say about companies? What does it say about work? Exponential thinking, where is this going in 10 years? Perhaps a company will only exist a weekend. It's time, I think, to start thinking about how we work together, how we form organizations, if we still have to work in 2030. On to economy and finance. A lot has been said about Bitcoin. I'm sure you're all familiar with that, and the other virtual currencies. And I just want to quickly talk about the technology behind that, and that's blockchain. Who of you know what blockchain is? Show of hands. Okay, just a couple of people. I'm going to try to explain it, but it's a bit complicated. Blockchain is like a virtual ledger, a virtual transaction database. It's distributed, highly scalable, and what it does, if you have a transaction between two people, you have a trusted third party. And this trusted third party in blockchain is the network itself. Meaning it kind of removes the need to have banks, because banks in our current financial broken system are the parties that provide trust in transactions. A lot of people think that the blockchain will have a bigger impact on our society than the internet has. And I think they're right. The blockchain is connected via cryptography that connect all the nodes of a blockchain. Governments are currently testing this technology to do electronic voting. Banks are trying to use this technology to see how they can integrate it into their systems. Notary and law companies are trying to figure out how they can use this, because it provides a level of trust that currently they provide. So it will disrupt their technology as well. It could be used as a replacement for DNS. Blockchain will revolutionize proof of ownership of virtual and physical goods. And about law, if you combine very smart AI with law, the role of attorneys will change. This is Watson again. Watson is powering a new super attorney company that provides services to people in the US. And if you combine this with blockchain technology, it could make the price of law, which is currently pretty expensive, go down, and also improve the efficiency. And that's again what new technology does. On transportation, the self-driving car, a lot has been said about that. Hardly a month goes by where you don't see some new advancement in self-driving technology. This is the Mercedes concept car, where the steering wheel kind of looks like an afterthought over there. So we might need a steering wheel. People seem very concerned about safety, asking, well, how safe is it to drive in a self-driving car, or to ride in a self-driving car? To me, it's the wrong question. The question should be, how safe is it to have humans drive? Because humans kill 3,000 people a day by driving. I think in the future we will look back at driving in cars the same way we look back at horseback riding. It's a nice hobby, but as engineers, we are used to automating stupid, repetitive tasks. We even have an acronym for this. Don't repeat yourself. I'm sure most of you are familiar with this. And this is what robotics is letting us do now with atoms, with stuff. The advance in robotics is remarkable. using very sensitive tools, very sensitive sensors, arrays of sensors in robotics, we are pushing the limits of what they can do. And robotic arms combined with an array of sensors will give us a run for our money in many, many fields. This is Wally. It's a French wine pruning robot. It can fully autonomously prune wines. It's being tested right now, and it will be available commercially probably next year. And it will put a lot of French laborers out of a job, because it does not complain, it does not strike. There's a sweeper. It's a green pepper pruning robot. Does the same thing. It's going to put a lot of laborers out of a job, because it does not strike, it doesn't complain, it's powered by a lot of sensors. It can, via those sensors, tell if there is a disease somewhere in your harvest. And this points to a future where humans might not be doing that much work anymore. The Bank of England published a report 2 weeks ago where they expect within 20 years that half of the UK labour force will be replaced by robots and artificial intelligence. And if a bank says that, it must be true, right? What shall we do then? The increased automation of atoms will eat jobs at the bottom of the food chain and create jobs at the very top, which will have some impact on our social structures, which is why I think there's a lot of talk in the US and elsewhere about things like a basic income. And I believe that certain countries will start doing that within the next 10 years. AI and robots will learn from us. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Facebook M. It's a human assistant artificial intelligence. It's being experimented in a couple of states now in the US, where you get like a chat robot in your Facebook Messenger, and you can ask it questions. Only those questions are partially answered by humans and partially by artificial intelligence. And the cool thing is, the artificial intelligence is learning from the answers that the humans are helping it form. The same thing happens in a couple of research projects where they have robots, humanoid-like robots, that look at what the humans do and learn from that. Because if you combine robotics with artificial intelligence, then you've got these self-learning algorithms. That's what they can do. And again, exponential thinking, this is going somewhere. It's just like cars. We've gotten used to traction control, brake assist, adaptive cruise control, and the next phase is here. This is a cyborg rose that was created 2 weeks ago. The scientists were able to create a living rose, and inside that rose is an electronic circuit, including a digital logical gate. And that's in a living plant. It doesn't die from this. They were able to have pixels in the leaves that can change its color. That's awesome. So why do you think that they did this? Well, because this enables incredibly detailed monitoring of plants. They can control the plant. Meaning, let's say I was a rose farmer, I could be looking at the weather tomorrow and say, well, it's going to be bad weather and it's going to be hail. Perhaps I should have the rose bloom next week. And they think that they will be able to achieve that within 5 years. That you'll be able to tell a plant when to do something. That means that you've got a plant with an API. And again, exponential thinking. Now they've done plants, what's next? So what happens when robotics is applied to healthcare? There have been a lot of examples of this. This is the Da Vinci robot. It's able to perform a lot of very complicated surgeries. It's currently assisted by humans. There's a human at the helm. It doesn't have to be in the same physical location. It could be an outsourced doctor in India. that performs a surgery in Amsterdam. More humanoid robots are being developed and tested right now. Remember the exponential growth of technology and imagine where this will be in 10 years. And what impact it could have and should have on the things that we do today and tomorrow. Currently, most of us are creating applications that have pretty flat UIs. Perhaps your UI should be 3D as for the Oculus Rift, or perhaps it should be an audio, because it could be used by your grandmother someday. This robot is I think it's already in production right now and being tested. And I think that one of these robots will be taking care of me when I'm, I hope 50, but let's see. This man lost his arms when he was 4 years old, and recently he's participating in a research project. They created robotic arms, and these arms are attached to his body just by straps, not in his body. And these arms have sensors on the shoulders, and these sensors are able to listen to the electronic signals that his nervous system provides. So when he thinks, I want to raise my hand, I want to pick up that apple, he can actually do that. What does that mean? Well, that means that the human body is getting an API. If you can listen to stuff happening in your nervous system, that's an API. And I think in the future, things that we might now think are very stupid will become normal. For example, currently we think it's normal to do Botox. Well, some people think it's normal to do Botox. Or breast implants. I think in the future it might become normal to say, well, this arm is not very useful to me because it's soft and it's bone and it's brittle, it can break. I'd like a replacement. I'd like one of those arms. Much stronger. I can put new tools on it. Perhaps that could become normal. To do body hacking like this. So then you get a human API. Because you can do a lot more with that. Yeah, that's the only code I'm going to show you today, sorry. I'm not sure if it's correct. Wearables. Wearables come in all forms and shapes. Technology is getting cheaper and smaller, and this will continue for a long time. This is a good example of this. This is a sensor that's able to measure your temperature, and it transmits that via the antenna that's over there. This is the antenna of this chip. This is a pill that, a chip. No, sorry, this is Google. Google is working on a bracelet that's able to measure about 300 elements in your body, from your heart rate to your skin temperature. And that data is being transmitted to a medical professional or to an AI, which is able to use that information to give you health warnings. It could be, and that's what Google thinks is going to be, it's an early warning system for disease. And if you have that on a global scale, it could mean that you have a global early warning system for disease and outbreaks. Then in healthcare, we've got injectables. This is a chip that you can implant. You've got smart implants. You've got ingestibles, pills that you can ingest and that can go through your intestines and track the different elements of your body and pass that data out to smart systems out there. Or you've got smart pills, not the Amsterdam type of smart pills, but real smart pills. This pill can measure the effects of medicine in real time. And pass it on to the doctor or Watson or some other artificial intelligence out there. I have a colleague that did this. I think it's stupid, but it looks very painful. It's a chip that is implanted here in his hands, and he can use that chip. It's an NFC chip, so he has the door on his house as a reader, and he can open his door just by touching the doorknob. And he can unlock his phone just by picking it up. And today it might seem silly, but exponential thinking. DNA. DNA is the new software, some think. It can be programmed using a technology called CRISPR. It's a technology where you're able to edit DNA like you would edit an Excel sheet, making all kinds of applications possible. This brings designer babies closer to reality. And we might have all kinds of objections to that, but this is what technology is making possible. So in some shape or form, it will be used. We will get a lot older than our grandparents did. It's been like that for hundreds of years. Every generation will become older. And again, exponential thinking, and applying that to how old we're going to get. The average life expectancy in the US increased by 100% in the 19th century, sorry, the 20th century. And it's going to continue to do that. Thinking exponentially, this pattern will continue. And I'm confident that we will be the last generation where dying is a choice. Let me say that again. I think we'll be the last generation where dying is a choice. Given all the health advancements that I've just shown you, this is probably what's going to happen. To talk about employment, robotics, and healthcare, we need to talk about education too. The current education system that we have all over the world was set up during the industrial age because we needed skilled laborers that can all do the same thing. They were disciplined, uniformly skilled, and they were trained using a system of order, discipline, and group teaching. Currently, we're in a new revolution where different skills are needed. Skills for creativity, flexibility, and entrepreneurship are much more important now than what is being taught in a lot of schools and universities. Because we are preparing our children for jobs that don't exist yet, using technologies that we don't know yet. And that has to say something about how we educate people. The stuff that smart people are doing in their weekend, that will be what most of us will call our jobs in 10 years. And there will be new types of jobs. Data hosting specialists, computer personality designers, or that memory surgeon that will change memories because of the research that they've done in mice. Or perhaps an extinction revivalist. I'm pretty sure that within our lifetime we will see extinct animals becoming alive again. Or what about a drone pilot? By 2030, they believe that there will be 1 billion commercial drones flying around. They'll be used by ski resorts to help them monitor guests, by airports, by prisons, by theme parks, everywhere around us. Technology is making these new jobs possible. The purpose of looking at the future is for us to disrupt the present. We have to keep changing. If you plan to be employed by 2025, pay attention to these trends and see how you can change in your current job and be flexible. The duration of a skill used to be 30 years. You learn something, you do it for 30 years, and then you retire. Currently, it's not like that. So, will you stick doing what you've currently learned, stick doing Java, and I'm doing Java, and that's what I've learned, and I'm going to keep doing that forever? Or do you need to be flexible and look at other technologies and embrace them? Because this change is like a steam train, it just keeps on going. What does this mean for the choices that you will help your children make in their education process? Two of the most essential skills are curiosity and critical thinking. These should be taught and nurtured, not something we see in every school or organization. We should be paying attention to the way we design smart things. In a world full of smart devices, ownership is changing. I might buy an iron, a smart iron, sometime. This iron was designed by a design company, and they had a certain user journey in mind. And they designed for that. But that might not be how I want to use it, or how I will use it. And if their user journey predicts certain things, then my toast could become very soggy. So it's important to think about the entire process when you design something. Design for freedom. I might want to redo my kitchen next year. I will buy a smart herb garden, and I might buy smart blinds. And I could have those two communicate with each other so that the blinds go open when the herb needs more sunlight. But then I'll get a thermostat, and that will fight with the blinds because it wants to keep the temperature down or up. So it's important to design for the whole system. We need to have API-centric architecture. I think that's important to be ready for the future. The time of creating templates for a CMS are over. You can't fully foresee the usage, the user journeys that people will have with your product. So design your APIs to be as fine-grained as possible and as coarse as needed. And look at what the giants are doing. Look at the entities they use. Look at the interfaces they have. Don't reinvent the wheel. Your app will become much easier to use if the entities are familiar to the people using it. Organizations usually have a tendency to embrace the status quo. If something is working, why should we want it to change? Why should we look into Node.js, Grails, Go, or whatever new language they figured out this time? While we've been using Java or .NET for 15 years. Embrace the new and improved. Keep looking for the next big thing because it's almost here. Flexible organizations are able to adapt and evolve, and the rest will probably be gone in 5 years. As you might have guessed, I believe that the future of IT is in software, hardware, and bioware. So start looking into these areas. I'm assuming most of you are engineers. Start looking for partners in hardware if you don't already have that. The human body is going to get an API. Look for partners that are specialized in bioware, life sciences. Don't stick with what you know and can do well. Find multi-skilled engineers, multi-talented people, not people that can only do one thing very, very well. The core of this new future is still software. We need brilliant software engineers to program our new memory robotic removal surgeon. My point is that the world is changing faster than before. Keep an open mind and keep questioning. Nurture that insatiable thirst for all things new. Curiosity fueled by not taking yourself too seriously and not assuming that everything you know is always true. In the past, the question has been can we fit the power of a mainframe computer into a desktop? The answer turned out to be yes, of course, and then some. Can we make it mobile enough to fit in on your lap? Yes, we could. Can we make it small enough to fit in your wrist? Yes, we could, and we probably can. There's an Android watch. So the answer has always been yes. I think it's time we change the question. As I've tried to show you, we are pushing the technological limits at an ever-increasing pace. Let's keep asking questions. Thank you. Hvala vam. So I think we have time for some questions. You can ask them in Serbian. I understand that, no problem. Feel free. There's one over there.
Ćao. U tvom izlaganju, I'm just kidding. You take it for granted that all the growth is exponential, so in all areas. But what about, for example, energy consumption or energy production and stuff like that? Do you see any constraints in any areas that will, just stop growth in other areas?
Yes, there are many constraints. There have always been many constraints, but I think as a species, we've shown that we're able to bridge the gap every time. We haven't gotten to a solid boundary that we can't overcome. And I think that's what makes us unique as humans. That we're always able to take that leap and to find a solution. And I think we will find solutions for most of the world's problems, given that capital supports that, which is a whole other discussion. Other questions?
Hi. I have one question. If you're familiar with development of artificial life lately, and I'm talking about a new branch of science that emerged like 10 years ago, not simulating biological life, but developing artificial life in computer ecosystem.
No.
Yeah, okay.
No.
It's quite interesting. So.
Good. Come talk to me afterwards. I'd love to hear about it.
Thanks for the awesome lecture.
Cool.
I have just one question. You say that our possibilities are endless, but perhaps our resources are not, because we know that all resources on Earth are limited. And what is your point of view on that? Thanks.
I think it's the same answer that I gave this gentleman here. I think that the resources are limited, but we live in a big solar system. And if we look at companies like SpaceX and the guy from Virgin, Amazon, space technology is making a lot of progress. But yes, there are limits, but I'm very sure that we will overcome those. There are a lot of ethical questions, I think, if this advancement will be for the entire world and how it will ripple through to the third world. And given how it's been done in the past, that will probably be a problem. And it will cause a lot of social unrest and problems. But we'll jump off that bridge when we get there, I guess. Hvala vam.